We're here at the Broadband Forum Base event at the Fiber Connect conference. Julie, Teresa. Julie, you started the thing off, and Teresa, you ended it. So this is great. We kind of have the thing bookended. Yeah. Julie, you were talking about the market forecasts, and right. Why don't you kind of explain where we are in that curve of deployments?
Sure. So we're seeing tremendous PON equipment deployments right now in North America. We had seen pretty good growth the last couple of years in Canada. Canada was has been ahead of the U.S. with fiber to the home, fiber to the premise deployments. But now we're seeing tremendous uptake in the United States by a very wide range of operators. And I think that's part of what's going to make it very interesting for vendors is to be able to support such a wide range, everything from tier ones to municipalities, utilities, alternative network operators that are being funded by private equity. Plus, we have to remember that there's over $65 billion going into broadband connectivity by the federal government. And some of that will take a couple of years to flow down to the equipment level, but it's tremendous. And we're seeing tremendous uptake of next generation PON, specifically 10G PON, and within that 10G GPON, which is XGS PON. Because the prices have come down, it's a stable technology, capacity is needed, more and more people have more and more connections to their network. They need the bandwidth for different types of working from home, studying from home, let alone new applications. We can't always predict them, but we know that they're coming. So it's a very great time to be a vendor in broadband connectivity, and it's going to continue, in my opinion, for at least 7 to 10 years that way.
Well, and you can't predict them, but you can use the data to kind of get an idea of where things are going. That's one of the themes of your talk, Teresa.
Absolutely. So if you have the data, I mean, your network, everybody's network is just a plethora of data. They have all the information they need to figure out what and when they're going to need to do something. So when you look at, for instance, the capacity, you look at a PON. If you understand that a particular PON with 32 subscribers has been increasingly getting more full from a bandwidth perspective, you can then predict that, say, 2 months from now, I need to actually make sure I have already pulled off multiple subscribers, decrease my split ratio, or move some subscribers to 10 gig PON. Maybe I've got some high users that I can just move and upsell them to a 10 gig PON. So that's all the kinds of things, that's one of the kinds of things I should say that you can do with the data that's in your network.
You had some good data points there as far as today GPON may be good enough, but you really have to think about 2026.
When you look at what's going on, I mean, subscribers. So the real key is that the usage that any individual subscriber is using is not going to break GPON. It's not even going to hardly touch it. But when you add all the subscribers together and that each of them is slowly but surely increasing their bandwidth usage, then when we look at the charts, we're starting to see that around 2026, in peak usage hours, you're going to have PONs, GPON specifically, that are challenged. And so it's time to start really thinking about how you make sure you don't have that problem. You have an alternate. You can move those subscribers to XGS PON.
And are you starting to see that in the data as far as the people deploying GPON are people who already have it out there versus new builds or XGS PON, that sort of thing?
For any operator that's just beginning network builds today, we're seeing them in the United States and in Canada pretty much go straight to XGS PON. I mean, I can't say that's 100%. But generally speaking, why not just use XGS PON today? Know that you're future-proofed for many years to come. Plus, you look at the capacity of compared GPON to XGS PON, you're going to get 5 times the downstream, 8 times the upstream bandwidth for a really good price point. And I'll take it a step further and say that even on the ONT/ONU side, we've begun to see a good level of deployments of 10G GPON ONT/ONUs, because they're also looking at the cost today. Okay, maybe the cost will come down more in the future, but that cost of that truck roll is not coming down. In fact, the cost of doing a truck roll to do an upgrade in 2, 3, 4, 5 years is probably going to go up given labor shortages. So why not put that 10G PON in the field at the customer premise today and say, hey, I know what I have. I may not offer 10G to that customer today, but if and when I do, I'm ready.
I'm curious if you're seeing many of the deployments, are they integrating the ONT into the gateway, or are they still separate boxes? And either one of you can touch on that, I guess.
Well, I can answer from how we are seeing it. So we have multiple options, obviously, in our portfolio. One that fully integrates the PON right into the residential gateway, the GigaSpire Blast in our case. And we're seeing a large propensity as people are rolling, especially new networks. If they're building, Julie mentioned all the money that's coming from the government. As these folks are building new networks, they're putting in one single system because it's simpler to deploy and it's upgradable and capabilities like that. But those that already have existing deployments probably have the two system, the separate ONT from the residential gateway. And in some cases, they're keeping that because otherwise you have to go and redo the fiber in the house. So it really comes down to a bit of choice.
Are you seeing anything from a market level from your vantage point, Julie?
We see both. I mean, it really depends on the service provider, what they want to do, what they've done, what they're comfortable doing. We see a lot of diversity, and I guess that's the other message that I would say that I spoke to today, is you see a lot of different types of service providers following very different strategies on deployments, future-proofing, what they're selling over that PON network. Is it residential only? Is it residential and business services? And by the way, Calix has a lot of operators who are using their networks for both residential and business services.
Yeah, and that did seem to be another theme, important to build one network to do a lot of things.
Absolutely. So, but not all operators are that way. Some are doing only residential. And by the way, one of Calix's customers is only doing business services and has no plans to ever get into residential. So it's diversity here in what they're deploying, how they're deploying it, if they're only in their traditional network area, if they're going outside of their area to get more customers, value-added services, et cetera, et cetera.
Business services is absolutely a key application, key service that they're deploying. It does give them a little bit of a call it, higher ARPU type service, so a higher value type service, and you mix that with the residential. And as soon as you start doing that, now you're talking about the need to have more XGS PON because you're looking for, again, we talk about bandwidth or capacity. Now you're looking for that true 1+ gig type service for those businesses where they may have, high usage and high needs. So lots of service providers are doing all kinds of different things, but it really comes down to having the flexibility to do what they need to do.
Excellent. Well, thank you both, and thank you for kicking off the event here.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.